Hey everyone, Joe Waxman here. And in this video, I want to look at the conjunction of Chiron and North Node, also known as Rahu. Before I begin, please hit the like button and subscribe if you can, or if you haven't already. Also, class tomorrow. It's on retrogrades. It's at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, US, Philly, New York. Cost, I'm asking $10, and just hit me up in an email if you want to get on the list. So, yep. So what is Chiron? You probably know by now, but if you're just tuning in for the first time, I gotta explain it a little bit. So Chiron is a minor planet in between Saturn and Uranus. It has a weird elliptical orbit where when it's in Libra, it's closer to the orbit of Saturn, and when it's in Aries, it's closer to the orbit of Uranus. So definitely unusual in that sense. Also, it does have rings, or a ring, and it's oddly shaped, and it has the tail of a comet known as a coma. So it's a very unusual planet, minor planet, in between a asteroid and a comet and minor planet. So it defies all stereotypes. It has a very fictional quality because it's just so unusual. And the mythology is equally unique of Chiron. So Chiron was born a centaur, but he's an unusual centaur. He's very different from the other centaurs. He has a full human body and a horse's torso growing out his rear, unlike the other centaurs who have a horse's body and the human torso growing out the top part. The other centaurs were very aggressive, sexual, very, low vibe, fighting, all that. And he was very spiritually evolved. He was a teacher, a philosopher, an astrologer, a healer, a medicine man. He knew all this kind of stuff. And he was very, so like very spiritually oriented, not this low vibe, screwing and fighting, as much as possible, like the other centaurs. So he was rejected by his mother, and then he got shot in the foot by a poison arrow that he himself made the poison because Hercules asked him to defeat an enemy. And he was, he's a healer, he's a medicine man, he's a shaman, he's very experienced with all the herbs and, potions, right? So he knew how to make this poison. So that's the irony, and that's the story of Chiron. Rejection, pain, wounds, in a negative sense, but also extremely different, extremely unique. Even in many ways, I think it's more unique than Uranus, but it has a similar vibe there. And a teacher and a healer and a medicine man and a shaman. So all these kind of things all in one, and different people represent different sides of Chiron, right? So that's important to notice. And what is North Node? North Node is, it has to do with the nodes of the moon. It's the eclipse points of the moon, and it deals with a kind of destiny in this life. It shows the direction that we're headed, right? South Node shows the past, North Node shows the future. South Node is activated in the first half of life, showing that when we're younger, we're just reviewing, we're going over all the lessons that we already learned karmically, spiritually, right? To refresh us, to remind us in this incarnation. And that North Node are all the lessons that we need to learn, that we signed up for in this life, that, we contracted for before we were born. We said, okay, we're going to learn about all this and that. That's where the North Node is pointing to the sign, the house, and the planets and aspects that it conjuncts or aspected by, reflects all that, right? And so North Node, it kind of becomes an obsessive quality, right? It's this area where we can never be fulfilled. We're just drawn to it, right? Obsessively. And it has qualities of materialism or worldliness. It creates a lot of cleverness. And it can create like kind of a shifty quality as well, like where a certain person wants to achieve by any means necessary, even not real means, because North Node itself is not a real planet, right? So it's not physical, and it's sort of like the analogy is head without a body. So it's like eating and eating and eating and never satisfied. So with that, there can be sort of, by any means necessary kind of ruthless quality to the North Node, but very clever, and very, very hungry. So North Node Chiron would, conjunct Chiron would blow up the significance of Chiron. So you're getting very fictional qualities because Chiron has this fictional quality, this thing that's like just beyond stereotypes, stand out, unique, extremely different, right? Also things having to do with healing or teaching, philosophy, high-mindedness, astrology, herbalism, anything that's, more spiritually evolved. So those two things, like a high level of creativity and fictionality, as well as very evolved spiritual teaching, kind of shamanistic, all that philosophical, high level intellect things. All right, so let's look at some examples. And we're going to start with Aries, as always, because, like I always said, Aries comes first. All right. So he's got Javier Bardem is an actor, and he's really intense. I mean, you probably remember him from No Country for Old Men, where he plays this intense, like, killer, I guess, psychopath kind of person. But he's a really good actor. He's been in a lot of movies. And he's got his North Node in Aries conjunct Chiron. And so the Aries thing is very strong with him, which would definitely relate to a sort of cold-blooded killer. It's also got his Venus and Saturn in Aries, which are not in great dignity, but that makes him, for a bad guy, excellent, because it's just a cold, ruthless quality, right? This Aryan, just, cold-blooded killer. And the Chiron for the very fictional element, right? He's just playing this exceptionally unique bad guy and doing it so well. Like, he's not stereotypical. We're not gonna just like be like, oh, that's like every other cold-blooded killer or whatever, right? I mean, obviously he's playing many different roles, right? But he's an actor. But Chiron really helps with that. This is sixth house, so it's going to have a very competitive vibe to it. He could, land some TV, regular roles with that sixth house daily grind occurring thing. Sixth house brings to the repetition, repetitive quality of, like, TV shows or media type stuff, regular publications. So that could be an option for him. But he's got a strong, active 12th house as well. Uranus and Jupiter in the 12th. That's a pretty intense combination as well. Very high-minded, right? So I don't know him personally, but that would be something that, well, in the 12th house, very high level creativity, right? Very exceptional, acting ability, and because Jupiter rules Sag, Uranus co-rules Aquarius, so these are both very big thinkers. Pluto is also in the 12th. For movies, that's really adding to that depth, mysterious quality. Then Mars is in Sag, but it's conjunct Neptune in Scorpio. This is in the second house, and that's great for acting as well, because Mars is drawing from this scorpionic Neptune. So we are getting that strong Mars, for a second house, in the second house. And also Mars in Sag is not bad anyway. It's really good aspect to the nodes. Mercury is trine the ascendant in the 5th house, Aquarius. So definitely and then Sun in Pisces for acting in the 6th house. But I bet he'd be a regular on a TV show at some point. This is unaspected Sun, so that is interesting. But very creative. Moon in Leo. Yeah, I don't want to take too long on this. That's pretty intense. This in conjunct between Saturn and Pluto and Venus. It's a little wide, but not too bad. 2 degrees off. I mean, that's still pretty intense. So you can see like super intensity that he comes across, with this conjunction. Any case, that's Javier Bardem. Who else has it in Aries? Jen Aniston, Mariah Carey, Bobby Brown, Alexander McQueen, and he's not related to Steve McQueen. He's a fashion designer. I think he was the lead designer for Givenchy. I guess they're a fashion brand. I'm not into fashion, but whatever. Florence Nightingale. Florence Nightingale really represents this because she was a nurse, right? So that is very much in the healing modality, the healing side of Chiron. And then Terrence Howard, who's a great actor. I would have liked to have done his chart, but there's no birth time. And he has the same conjunction, by the way, of Jupiter and Uranus. And he's somewhat of a really out-of-the-box thinker, like kind of genius level. Terrence Howard, just for the record. And I don't know where this falls, but that would make a huge difference. It might be like in the 3rd house, right? Jupiter and Uranus in the 3rd, or something like that, maybe the 8th. It gives him this really unique thinking ability. Go to his website. He has this, I can't remember. He does all this math and philosophy kind of stuff. In any case. Yeah. But the North Node, Chiron, will be great for actors, any creative type. It's going to create that really obsessive quality. So let's go to Taurus. And in Taurus, we have Grace Kelly, Bill Evans, who's a jazz musician, Barbara Walters, Ursula Le Guin, she's an author, Gene Hackman, Chet Baker, another jazz guy, and Buzz Aldrin, an astronaut. But we're going to look at Grace Kelly. Grace Kelly was a famous actress who married the Prince of Monaco to become a princess of Monaco. So she's got a fairy tale life. I mean, how amazing is that? It has almost the same ascendant as me. Loaded 1st house, right? Loaded in Scorpio, with Mars in Scorpio. Mercury, South Node, Sun, and Mars. And she has this really striking exotic look, and it's all tied into this grand water trine with Pluto and Moon. Pluto in Cancer, and that's bonifying the moon bonifying Pluto, but also the moon benefits because connection to Cancer, domicile. Pluto also benefits from exact trine to Scorpio, Sun. So this is very, very strong grand water trine. North Node conjunct Chiron in the 7th. So there's something about this Prince of Monaco, who is Chironic. Chiron in Taurus. Interesting. All right, Taurus for luxury, obviously, right? Venus in the 12th, so she's going to marry somebody foreign and in good dignity. Venus is in domicile here. Somebody very good looking, rich, handsome, luxury, all that. But very, very unusual, Chironic. So Chiron seems to be okay with a prince, right? Chiron's not this low level. Doing all this research about Chiron definitely had shifted my perception of Chiron. It can represent some, the lower segment of society, especially with the rejection and the wounds. But the conjunction doesn't seem to bring out the negative side of Chiron at all. at least a lot of the times. You know, if it's not badly aspected, it doesn't seem to, right? It seems to be very high level. In here we see that. I mean, it's quite exceptional. What's interesting is that, you know, she was South Node. When she was young, she starred in all these films, major movie star, right? And then Saturn's in the second. So for acting, Saturn's not bad. I mean, it's not badly, it's not inhibiting her, it's not making her wait long, it's not, but it's even in Sat. So that's interesting. Maybe because it's sextile, it's got a sextile to Venus, which, even though that has nothing to do with, well, Venus helps Saturn, so that's probably why. And this Venus is in really good dignity. So Saturn's ruling the fourth, third, and fourth. So fourth for early childhood acting. So in any case, South Node in the first, you know, with all these planets and good dignity, with you know, Mars and Scorpio bonifying all of it, Ascendant, Sun, Mercury does well in the first. So tremendous first house. And then she goes and marries and leaves acting behind. North Node in Taurus, marries a prince. So that's pretty impressive. Jupiter is sesquisquare Venus, so that has to do with the marriage as well, because Venus is ruling the seventh. Jupiter in the eighth, so inheritance, shared resources. Jupiter's in Gemini, that's not great. So there's something, but Jupiter in Taurus, these are both benefics. So it's bringing out a lot of excess, right? It's very excessive. And possibly there's some tension there, you know? Maybe there's some aspects of the marriage that are not ideal because Jupiter is not in good dignity. However, it's still very excessive. It's still like luxury upon luxury. And, you know, so Jupiter's ruling her second in the eighth, so resources into shared resources, right? So definitely. And then she dies in a car crash. This unaspected Uranus in Aries in the sixth house. Uranus is accidents. Aries would be cars, right? Sixth house, health, you know, conflict, unaspected. So just out of the blue, it's like fairy tale life, boom, dead from a car crash. I don't know if there's conspiracy around that. I haven't done any research. I don't know, right? But for acting, Neptune in Virgo, sextile the ascendant, that's perfect. Pluto, I mean, Pluto is trine the sun, but it's a trine, right? It seems all very good. I think it's more this. The unaspected Uranus is just sort of out of the blue, boom, car crash. Everything's so good here. It's amazing. But yeah, Chiron is representing this prince, right? Like it's complete one of a kind, complete maverick. That's what Chiron can, that's one aspect of Chiron, just so original, just, you know, completely unique. In any case. Let's go to Gemini. And who has in Gemini? Khloe Kardashian, who is famous for nothing, just like all the Kardashians, just for being rich, and, you know, some of them are good looking, I guess. I don't know, whatever. Teal Swan. Teal Swan, I'm gonna look at her chart. She is a Chironic figure. Aubrey Plaza, who you may not know the name, but you'll know the face. She's an actress who's done some movies, and, you know, I mean, I didn't know her name, but then I looked her up and I was like, oh yeah, that girl. And then Taylor Schilling, who is Piper in Orange is the New Black. These young actresses. We're gonna look at Teal Swan, who's a controversial figure. I don't hate her, but some people are just like really triggered by her. I know, like, some people were like, oh, she's a rape apologist, therefore just like we can't listen to anything she says. Other criticisms of her were that her psychological methodology is extremely controversial. So like she was trying to heal people with depression who are suicidal by saying it's okay to imagine, like telling them to imagine them committing suicide. I don't know how factual that is, like, and haven't heard her talk about it and heard her defense, because I know these things can get very twisted, especially by small-minded people. But there's a chance that she could be very controversial. I mean, not a chance. I mean, she is controversial. I've heard some of the things, but that's okay. Let's be adult about this, and let's hear people out, and let's think about it for ourselves. Decide what's worth listening to, what's not worth listening to. The old saying, "Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater." I don't think she's all bad. She has a lot to offer, and maybe not everything is for everyone, but pick and choose. Be adult. I don't think there's anything wrong with her. She's trying to help people, and maybe some of her, it's okay to be controversial, because you can come up with genius stuff that way. In any case, strong Gemini in the 12th. So Gemini's a trickster. Gemini loves to be intellectually funny, right? Funny, not necessarily ha-ha. I mean, I have a pretty good insight in this because I'm Gemini Sun and Venus, and I know for myself that I get a kick out of doing things or saying things or presenting things in a way that might make people scratch their heads, right? And it's not necessarily something you're going to laugh out loud about, but it's something that if you know how to look at it right, you're going to laugh. You're going to laugh at yourself. You're going to laugh internally. It's funny. Geminis love to play tricks on people. They love to be funny. They love to be a bit naughty. Okay, so she is a bit naughty. She's got her Sun conjunct Venus, North Node, Chiron, and Chiron is that high-level spiritual, reject, but a teacher, philosopher, shaman, healer, right? And she does that in Gemini. So it's sort of like this is kind of like the that what they call a Heyoka empath, right? The trickster empath. That I don't know a lot about it, but that's what I've heard, something like that. Also, there's a trine to Moon in Aquarius, so she's very, very, very intellectual, very smart. Moon's ruling her 7th. Moon's ruling her ascendant in the 7th quadrant. Jupiter is in Capricorn. It's conjunct Neptune. So very, very big philosophy. Potentially her philosophy may well, it's interesting because it's in Capricorn. Capricorn's very practical, very grounded, very, Jupiter in Capricorn is going to vet what they believe in, but Neptune isn't. So it's interesting that this balance between Jupiter conjunct Neptune, which would be like so out there, right? Head in the clouds, believing in all sorts of fantasy, and then Capricorn, which is like, the gatekeeper. It's like not going to let anything in there that's not grounded in something really practical. And then Mars is conjunct Saturn in Scorpio. That's really intense in the 5th house. Mars in domicile, but bonifying the Saturn. But the Mars and Saturn are really an intense combination. But it's Mars and Saturn are bonifying this Jupiter, right, by sextile. And then Pluto, and see, I don't want to take too long because this will take forever. I'm just trying to break it down. Pluto, sextile Neptune. So there's a lot of stuff going on, very mystical. South Node Uranus, and she does have a history of trauma. She grew up in a very abusive environment, community, and that's Uranus can represent trauma, obviously. But in any case, there is some weird things going on. No doubt very intelligent, but She is a trickster, and but I'm not saying everything that they're saying about her is false, or true, sorry. There's a lot of bad stuff said about her, and it's a mixed bag. Let's put it that way. I'm not against her, but you know, everyone has to make up their own mind. Pluto is square Moon. That's difficult, especially with Moon ruling the ascendant. Any case, that's Teal Swan. She is representing this Chiron, especially in Gemini, more of a trickster healer, but you know, intellectual. So anyway, got to be careful with Geminis. They're clever and they love to play jokes. Let's go on to Cancer. And in Cancer, we have John Cocteau, who is a poet and a playwright and a novelist. Anna Akhmatova, who is a Russian poet, very famous one, or at least in Russia anyway, or important one. And Jose Padilla, composer. Not a whole lot to choose from, but we're going to look at John Cocteau. And just to give you a better idea, I want to pull up, sorry. Well, just never mind. He wrote a bunch of stuff. You'll have to look him up on your own. I thought I left his Wikipedia page up there, but he's actually very well known. Wrote, I think he L'Enfant Terrible. You know, he wrote a lot of I don't know. He did a lot of stuff. If I'm thinking of the right guy, any case. Very strong first house with Venus and domicile Taurus. And you can see here, very first, second, third house, right? Loaded. Gemini, Taurus, Cancer. So, you know, writing, Mercury and Gemini. North Node, Sun, Chiron. So it's Sun's in there, but so very creative. Mars, debilitated. So it's probably going to be a lot of sex and violence in his creativity, which is good for, you know, for creativity. Mars in Cancer is very, you know, loves the sex and violence. Because it's becoming very, you know, wet and physical and emotional. Right? But, you know, very intelligent, great at writing. What else? Moon in Virgo, Moon trine Venus and the ascendant. That's all good and well. Probably not very religious. South Node and well, Jupiter and then South Node, and then, yeah. So like some issues with religion for sure. Jupiter is in the 9th, but it's in Capricorn. So maybe very dogmatic, grew up with very dogmatically religious or something like that. Not sure. But just quickly, I mean, you can see that the Chiron and Cancer in the 3rd house is going to play strongly into his writing. North Node, Sun, Chiron. And making him a very unique, original, creative type of writer. I don't have any references. I'm sorry. I don't know. I can't recall exactly what he wrote, but it will be Chironic. Definitely high-level creativity, out-of-the-box creativity. Let's go on to Leo. Sharon Tate, she was an actress. Jimi Hendrix, who we're going to look at. George Harrison, Christopher Walken, Bobby Fischer, the chess player, Joe Pesci, Robert Hand, who is a famous astrologer, and Billy Connolly, right? So a lot of actors, Jimi Hendrix, the guitar player, George Harrison, guitar player, chess player, Bobby Fischer, which is interesting. And he was very unique. I'm not sure. Yeah, I mean, Chiron probably does play a role. I would think it's more Pluto. I know that, you know, Mercury, things like that. But Chiron, because it is very high level thinking, that probably helps, but more so for just making him an icon, more for making him a maverick, unique, completely one of a kind. I mean, how many chess players do we know the name of, right? And it's just making him just this totally unique character. And then Robert Hand, Chiron was an astrologer, right? And then Billy Connolly, he's an actor and comic, Scottish and thinker, and quite a good guy. Like he's good. All right, let's go to Jimi Hendrix. Alrighty, so we see a very tight conjunction between Chiron North Node in Leo, right at the end of Leo. So the creativity, right? High level creativity. Of course, he's got Jupiter Moon, Jupiter the Ascendant Lord, and Jupiter the third cusp, so guitar playing, right? Conjunct the moon, exalted, and conjunct the moon in domicile. So it's so powerful. And then Sun conjunct Venus, trine Pluto in Leo, very strong, because Leo, right? So Sun is bonifying this Pluto, very powerful, 8th house, giving that depth, you know, that raw, gritty power, the sex and violence in the guitar. Neptune, very prominent. Mars and Scorpio, of course. Right. And so South Node, so North Node is in the 8th house, right? Right at the end of the 8th house. So that is a difficult position. Not everyone who has North Node in the 8th house is going to die young, but it is, you do see this sometimes with people who do die young. North Node in the 8th house. Because once they get old enough, then they're pulling in this 8th house karma. He also has Pluto in the 8th, so that's a big, and then Pluto is, you know, a little wide, but it's still conjuncting the moon and Jupiter. I mean, more the moon, but then Jupiter's pulling in. Saturn is in the 6th, along with Uranus, Saturn and Uranus, and that's difficult, right? But Gemini, skills of the hands again. So, but yeah, North Node Chiron for very high level creativity in Leo, definitely. And Chiron does die from a poison arrow. So Chiron, North Node, 8th house. In case, interesting. That is Jimi Hendrix, very briefly, but I don't want to take too long. We still got a long way to go. Yeah. Virgo, there's nobody in Virgo because of the way Chiron and North Node, you know, intersect. Libra, we got a very small pool to choose from. Luke Hemmings, who's, I mean, some of you younger people may know him. He's 5 Seconds of Summer lead singer, who's apparently extremely popular, but I've never heard of I've never heard of him. I've never heard of their band. I mean, I don't want to, it sounds bad, but Joseph Pulitzer, we're going to look at. Apparently they sold a lot of albums, not just Pulitzer, but 5 Seconds of Summer, and they're pop rock. I'm not going to listen to anything called pop rock. Anything in the genre of pop rock, just I don't want to know about it. In any case. Pulitzer. We are going to look up his Wikipedia because he's a little bit complicated. So he was a politician and a newspaper publisher of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch and the New York World. he became a new national figure in the Democratic Party, blah, blah, blah. But because of the competition between another newspaper, he developed yellow journalism. That's an American term for journalism, an associated newspaper that present little or no legitimate, well-researched news, while instead using eye-catching headlines for increased sales. Techniques may include exaggeration of news events, scandal mongering. Excuse me. And so this kind of yellow journalism reached millions of copies a day and opened the way to mass circulation newspaper that depended on advertising revenue. I think these are like the gossip rags, like the Star or whatever, National Enquirer. I don't know the names of them. If that's, I don't know. I'm not sure if that's what it is, but I think that's what it is. In any case, the Pulitzer Prize came from he left an endowment to Columbia University. So primarily a journalist, but also a politician. A sort of, new, like the new, like superficial, highly superficial kind of media. And then so like ascendant in Libra. So one of the criticisms of Libra is superficiality, right? Libra, extremely successful oftentimes because of their ability to schmooze, right? And kiss butt and sell things, right? And so this yellow journalism, all right, has to come from North Node in Libra, Ascendant Libra, and then Chiron. Chiron making him extremely unique, one of a kind of person, high level creativity. And then there's a little bit wide trine to Jupiter and Gemini also for the media. 8th house, Jupiter and Gemini in poor dignity in the 8th house, so a bit of underhandedness. 8th house can bring in a criminal element for certain. But we're getting a lot of air as well, so very, very intellectual. And then a huge 7th house for competition, Aries, the aggressive factor. And then Pluto, definitely Pluto and Aries wanting to, in the 7th house, conjunct the sun, definitely wanting to control, wanting to be competitive, wanting to manipulate others. So that's very strong. Venus is in Taurus. It's trine the moon, Venus trine the moon, which is interesting. Moon's not really ruling a house, but 9th whole sign house. No, 10th whole sign house, sorry. 10th whole sign house. And Venus is 8th. So definitely some manipulative career practices. I have to pause this for 1 second. Sorry about that. It's the bathroom. All right. So yeah, Libra. And I just want to say it's kind of funny because just in case anyone thinks it's you can call a Libra superficial and they won't care unless they have some heavy water placements, or maybe, other, but if they're strong Libra, strong air, they'll just laugh it off and they'll be like, yeah, so what? I get shit done. I'm smart. I know how to do stuff. So it doesn't really matter. You can call them what they are. If you call somebody what they are, generally it's okay because they're like, yeah, so what? In any case, yeah, fascinating that he created this yellow journalism, Libra, North Node conjunct Chiron. North Node also has that. Remember, I said that has that by any means necessary kind of energy. It just wants to achieve. It wants to do what it does, and so it's pursuing this, Libra and Chiron Libra, this kind of highlight, very fictional quality. Obviously, he's not going for like the spiritual side of things. I mean, Libra would not tend to go there anyway. But in any case, so that's Joseph Pulitzer. Scorpio, there's nobody in Scorpio with this combination. Because I don't know when it happened, but there's nobody to know. In any case, let's go to Sag. Humphrey Bogart, which I'd love to look at his chart, but there's no birth time. But he's probably he's considered the greatest actor of all time, so that's something. I mean, just knowing that North Node Chiron, that's definitely helping with that. Omran Mikhail Ivanov, who you never heard of, but he is a philosopher mystic, and he definitely embodies the Chironic archetype very well. And we'll look at his chart. And then we got Yves Tanguy. I don't even know how to pronounce his, but he's a surrealist, like Salvador Dali, but more weird, right? If you can imagine that. And so that's, also very Chironic. Richard Halliburton, who was, and remember this is in Sagittarius, so he was a travel writer and an adventurer. Okay, so Sagittarius, travel writer and adventurer, makes sense, right? And then he died mysteriously. But let's look at Omram. He's a mystic. He's a spiritual teacher. We don't know much about him in the West because he didn't speak English, right? So if you're into spirituality, he taught in French mostly, I think, even though he was Macedonian. I think he went to France and learned French. But here, North Node Chiron in the second in Sagittarius. So spiritual teacher, second for speaking, for teaching. Chiron, philosopher. Sag, Jupiter, philosopher, right? Spiritual teacher, high level. Jupiter, Uranus. And then Saturn is 0 degrees Capricorn, very Aquarian as well. Aquarius lends itself to so many big thinking. You see philosophers, scientists, social politics, anything where it's like the mind, you need just like genius kind of thinking, you can find Aquarians, right? Let's see here. South Node Pluto, Neptune, Gemini, 8th house, mysticism, esotericism, right? Scorpio ascendant. So yeah, South Node, Neptune, Pluto in Gemini in the 8th, very high level, very intellectual sort of penetration of the occult world, mystical world. Pluto square Venus, exalted Venus. Venus is ruling the 7th and the 12th, and Venus is also square Uranus. And so that's interesting. Because Venus is in good dignity, it's exalted, but it has 2 squares to malefics. And he did have some interest, it's also trying the ascendant. He did have some interesting foreign travel experiences. He went to India and met some gurus, some enlightened beings, and they validated him. They gave him his name, Omram, called him a sadhu. So he is legitimate. He's real spiritual teacher, really knows his stuff. So yeah, so Chiron definitely playing that role of healer, teacher, philosopher, mystic, spiritually evolved kind of, teacher. Okay. All right, let's go to Capricorn. And in Capricorn, we got Oprah Winfrey, John Travolta, Recep Erdogan, who is the president of Turkey, Howard Stern, Christy Brinkley, and Hans Christian Andersen, the author. So let's look at Oprah Winfrey. And I'm going to tell you right now, Oprah Winfrey is fooling everyone, or a lot of people. She's not this great, nice person. She's not like this great humanitarian who cares about everyone and wants to do good for all humanity and like is so wonderful, right? She's got a lot of good stuff going for her, but she's fooling people. So first of all, 29th degree Sag ascendant Jupiter in the 6th in Gemini. So media, 6th house, also for 6th house is for that daily, show, like a TV show, regularly recurring show, magazine, so something regularly recurring. Media, Gemini, right? Jupiter, 6th house. Trine, Mercury, Sun, a little bit wide for the Sun, but Mercury. So, 2nd house speaking, Chiron, and North Node in first house. We'll call it first. It's first. Getting close to the second, but it's the first. So she herself is this North Node Chiron in Capricorn, right? A maverick, a unique, one of a kind, irreplaceable, just defying all stereotypes, which she does, right? And Capricorn, leader, fine, that's all good and well. She's got Neptune in the 10th house in Libra. Neptune in Libra in the 10th is going to deceive people. This is for an artist. This is for a movie star. This is for an actor. This is for somebody who's involved in Neptunian career. This is complete deception, right? She's a good actress. She's playing a role, but she's not being truthful. She's not being honest. That's a fact. Saturn in Scorpio is so heavy, so dark. It's square Venus and the Sun very intensely, right? Sun is ruling the 8th house. Venus is ruling the 5th and the 3rd. Oh, sorry. Scratch that. The 10th. Sorry. The 3rd, exaltation lord of the 3rd. So public image and entertainment. I mean, she is involved in child trafficking. I'm just gonna lay it out there for you. Spell it out. North Node in conjunct Chiron in conjunct Pluto. Pluto's in the 8th. Come on, there's something extremely dark about her. South Node, Uranus in Cancer. So South Node Uranus can represent genius, but it can also represent trauma. It's in Cancer in the 7th house. So something with her past having to do with her as a woman. Could be something very traumatic happened to her. And this is also how she's relating to others. Mars and Scorpio, in Saturn and Scorpio. Scorpio always deals with like these very deep things. Look at this. Mars is square Pluto. Mars and Scorpio. You know who has this square? Bruce Lee. Do you think Oprah Winfrey is a martial artist in disguise? No, I don't think so. But what she is extremely driven towards something very, very intense, right? She did not get where she is by being this nice, lovely woman. She has Sun conjunct Venus, Cazimi. So she comes off. I know I have Sun conjunct Venus, not Cazimi, but Sun conjunct Venus are nice people. They have a nice personality. They exude this kind of Venus quality. She's got it exact. But she's not nice. She is driven. Bruce Lee was driven. She's driven. I'm just telling you, she is deceiving you. She is lying. Anyone who thinks she's not lying is lying to themselves or is just being deceived. This is a criminal. I mean, this is potentially criminal. I'm not going to outright, well, I know she's a criminal, so let's put it that way. She was total friends with John of God, who was convicted of all this child trafficking. She's one of these pedophiles. She's one of these elite pedophiles. Okay, she's got like billions of dollars. She goes and traffics children under the guise of being like this holy, caring, she's not. Look at all these red lines. It is so intense. Mars in Scorpio, square Pluto and Leo. Saturn in Scorpio, square Venus and Sun in Aquarius. These are fixed signs. They're so intense. I'm telling you. She's not a nice person. She's definitely a deviant. Pluto's in the 8th. His Sun is ruling the 8th house. Laying it up for you. She's a maverick. She's one of a kind. She's unique. She's a captain. She's a boss. But she's not a good person. She's definitely involved in all that elite pedophilia, satanic child trafficking, nonsense. She was friends with John of God, who was an outright, criminal, an outright, horrible human being, pretending to be all Christian, and he's like enslaving men and women and children, or at least women and children, and like having sex with them and all, and rape, murder, all that pedophilia stuff. And then Harvey Weinstein, total good friends with Harvey Weinstein, probably Jeffrey Epstein too. All right, let's move on. People have to know this stuff, that they're heroes or not heroes. Well, hold on. First, let's look at Aquarius. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who wrote what is it? Watson, and what is it? Watson and God, what's wrong with me? Hounds of Baskerville. What? Sherlock Holmes. Wow. Sherlock Holmes. He wrote Sherlock Holmes. Pierre Curie, who's the husband of Marie Curie, and he was a physicist, a scientist as well. David Hume is a philosopher. Henry Bergson is a philosopher. John Dewey is a philosopher and a psychologist. So you see the very high level thinkers with Aquarius. But we're going to look at Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Sherlock Holmes. And so Sherlock Holmes, calling him Sherlock Holmes, Sherlock Holmes is a Gemini. So if you want to know what that is, he's a Gemini Sun, 0 degree Gemini Sun, 0 degree Aquarius Moon. Perfect, right? You want to know what kind of, intellect would produce Sherlock Holmes. It's Gemini. Well, it's 0 degree Gemini Sun, 0 degree Aquarius Moon. Not only that, 0 degree Gemini Sun conjunct Uranus. Brilliant. This is brilliant, right? Then Gemini ascendant, Mercury and Mars in Gemini, and then Jupiter in Gemini. Like, just tons of Gemini. And then Mercury's in Taurus. Mercury in Taurus. You wouldn't think that, would you? Well, Mercury in Taurus conjunct Pluto in Taurus. So Pluto being very psychological, very deep thinking, very penetrating, right? Not only that, square Saturn, right? Mercury in Taurus. Mercury in Taurus is very foundational thinking. Mercury rules the intellect. Taurus is all about foundations, right? Taurus you can be all philosophical and high-minded, and then Mercury in Taurus will just be like, yeah, but you didn't check your foundations. Your whole premise is wrong because blah, blah, blah. Therefore, your whole house is going to fall down. Your whole house of cards, your whole philosophy, your whole thing, because your foundations are wrong. Taurus is very foundational, right? And it's going to stick to the bottom line. So that's Mercury and Taurus kind of thinking. But the square to Saturn is going to make it very intensely scientific, right? I mean, already it's very practical. And so, I mean, Taurus is very sensual, so it can lead to beauty. But this Saturn square is going to bring it down to very physical, concrete, thinking. Plus the Pluto Mercury is going to be so deeply psychological and penetrating, very intense, extremely intense thinking. And Jupiter and Gemini square Neptune and Pisces. Again, see, Neptune and Pisces, it's not because his MC is way off, but this is the 10th whole sign house. Neptune and Pisces. We just saw Neptune in the 10th house for Oprah. She's playing like she's a real person. She's an actress, right? Arthur Conan Doyle. He's really a writer, right? He makes fiction. This is fiction, mark of fiction, career, one of them, right? And it's square Jupiter. Jupiter is excellent in the first house. Not excellent in Gemini, but for Gemini things, it's excellent. So, but this is a very fictional combination square. It's just making him, squares make you work hard. So, it's an element of tension that is very, for Jupiter and Gemini is going to lean towards more intellect and writing and things like that. And then Neptune and Pisces is going to be extremely creative. It's in domicile. So this is bona fide here. And then Jupiter is the co-ruler of Pisces. So actually it's, further bonifying this Neptune, right? Very strong Neptune. North Node in Chiron in Aquarius, Moon in Aquarius. So that fictional element, it's in the 10th house. Sherlock Holmes is a Chironic figure. So is Watson, because they're not real. And that is very Chironic, but it's super brilliant, right? Especially with Aquarius. Aquarius, the sign of genius. It's, nice trine to Gemini. So Gemini, Aquarius, and then Taurus, Leo, South Node, Leo. And Saturn in the 3rd whole sign house, 4th, IC. It's conjunct the IC, but it's 3rd whole sign house. So 3rd, 4th, right? And then North Node in 9th, 10th. Publishing for the 9th. Also adventure for the 9th, but 10th career, right? And then 8th, 9th for the moon. 8th for that deep, secretive kind of, again, the scorpionic, plutonic depth, deep diving, but still, 8th, 9th, 10th influence, if you ask me. Let me take that back. 9th and 10th, because it's the 9th whole sign house and 9th quadrant, but influencing the MC. So, in any case, Saturn would be ruling the 8th. So yeah, that is Arthur Conan Doyle. North Node, Chiron in Aquarius. Very high level, genius kind of creativity, brilliant, unique. And then Sun conjunct Uranus and Gemini. So I'm excited for Uranus to be moving into Gemini because it's gonna do well. We're gonna have that in 2025. Okay. Who else has it in Aquarius? I already said that. Who has it in Pisces? William Burroughs, who we're gonna look at. Marguerite Duras, who is a novelist and a playwright. Gypsy Rose Lee, she was a burlesque dancer and a stripper. Famous one. And Alec Guinness, who is an actor. But we're going to look at William Burroughs, who is one of the original beat poets. Beat writers, I should say. There it is. He's famous for, he wrote Junkie, and then he wrote Naked Lunch, and then he wrote a bunch of other stuff, right? But if you ever seen or read Naked Lunch, you'll know just how crazy this guy is. Great writer, totally crazy. He was addicted to heroin. He was a junkie. He was a druggie, but brilliant first house. Okay, Jupiter, Uranus, Venus, Sun, Mercury. I mean, dude has a lot going on. Super big character, right? Aquarian, very weird. You know, Uranus is here, bonifying this whole thing. Mercury gains directional strength in the first house or conjunct the ascendant. Mercury for writing. North Node and Chiron in Pisces in the first, second whole sign, but still primarily the first. So he's got like a lot of 12th first house action. These are the 12th, but first whole sign, second whole sign, but first quadrant, but Pisces for creativity. And then 12th house for creativity. So extremely creative, out of the box, crazy, crazy, crazy. And then Moon in Gemini. Moon in Gemini is always a little crazy. But it's that trine, it's that air trine again, and then conjunct Saturn. So he's very dissatisfied. Moon conjunct Saturn is not a happy moon. Not easy to be satisfied. And then Chiron is square the sun or the moon and Saturn, which would be difficult because it's going to activate a little more of the difficult sides of Chiron. So he's not happy. So no wonder he went to drugs. I mean, that's also a very Piscean thing, but crazy, bit crazy, but like so constricted. Saturn's going to make him very hardworking. His moon, perpetually dissatisfied. It's in Gemini, so he's going to take it out in writing. Mars is in Cancer, so sex and violence are going to be, hot topics for him, especially in the 5th house. Neptune in Cancer. Neptune, semi-square the Saturn and Moon. Neptune for drugs and alcohol, but also for fantasy, fiction, creativity, imagination. Pluto has a sesquisquare to Venus. Okay, Venus represents women. He killed his wife. He shot her. It was by accident, apparently. That's what he claims. But it happened. Venus for women. Venus conjunct the sun. Venus conjunct Uranus, accident. Yeah. Saturn conjunct Moon. But let's see. Sun is ruling the 7th, and is still Pluto's still hitting the sun with the sesquisquare. So Pluto conjunct the 7th lord. Dangerous. But in any case, he does have the South Node Virgo in the 7th. So for writing early on, and then moving into that Piscean creativity. Where he's not very happy, but certainly a creative and talented and crazy writer with a Chiron. If you ever watch Naked Lunch, you'll get it. Like, you'll see it. You'll see this North Node in Chiron and Pisces. It's like, whoa, way out there. But definitely Chironic. Definitely one of a kind. Definitely extremely unique. Definitely defying all stereotypes, any and all. He's just a complete maverick in his realm. So that is North Node Chiron. North Node tends to blow up Chiron, make it really kind of obsessive. It's just Jupiter expands things. North Node tends to really exaggerate things, right? So there's a similar quality between Jupiter and North Node. It has this fiction. North Node has this fictional quality to it, even, and it has almost like a fake quality, but like sort of like fake it till you make it. you obsess over something and it's not real, but it gets blown up anyway. So that's sort of how North Node tends to operate. It creates the illusion. It's very illusionistic, creates the illusion of something being very big when in fact it doesn't exist, because North Node in fact is not a real, it's not a planet, but it has the very expansive obsessive energy. So it increases whatever it touches. So Chiron is being increased with North Node. Alrighty. That is North Node in Chiron Conjunct. Guys, please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already, and come to my class tomorrow night. It's on retrogrades. Cost is $10. Time is 7 p.m. Eastern Standard, Philly, New York. Just email me to get on the list. And book a reading with me. My website is macroastrology.com. My email is macrogoldmachine@yahoo.com. And I will see you again soon. Tomorrow, Chiron and South Node. All right.